Congratulations to our graduates from our West Garfield campus in beautiful Rifle, Colorado. We're so proud of you, and I am privileged and honored to introduce to you today your keynote speaker, the Honorable Supreme Court Justice Monica Márquez. Monica grew up in Western Colorado, in Grand Junction. She went off to Stanford University and to Yale Law School, and she's come back to her home state of Colorado and is serving as the first Latina in the Colorado Supreme Court. I'm confident that she will have an important message to all of our graduates and families today. Please enjoy Monica Márquez.
Felicidades, clase de 2020. Greetings, class of 2020. And congratulations to all of you for graduating, especially in the middle of a pandemic. That is not an easy feat. My name is Monica Márquez, and I'm a justice on the Colorado Supreme Court, where I've served since 2010. I'm so honored to speak with you, proud Colorado Mountain College Rifle Campus graduates. I grew up in Grand Junction, and so when President Hauser asked me in January to join you at your commencement, I was so excited to head home to the Western Slope. And then, as we know, everything kind of turned sideways. I know that this spring has been challenging in all kinds of unexpected ways. And I also know that for many of you, graduating from college or completing your GED has been the hardest thing you've ever done. It's a tremendous accomplishment. And so I can imagine how heartbreaking it is not to be able to celebrate this in person with your classmates and your friends and your extended families. I wish so much that I could be there in person to see your faces and give every single one of you a high five. But I'm also grateful to CMC for this opportunity to record my remarks for your virtual commencement ceremony. This year, 2020, our nation celebrates the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. The fight for women's suffrage wasn't easy, and it didn't happen fast. In fact, by most accounts, it started in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York, with the passage of a resolution calling for the right to vote. The women who began that battle did not live to see the end of it. Others had to pick up the torch and carry it for another 72 years before the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution was finally ratified in 1920. Here in Colorado, though, women gained the right to vote more than a quarter century earlier in 1893. Compared to the rest of the nation, that's pretty remarkable. Even more remarkable, Colorado made national history by achieving this milestone not through legislative action, but by popular vote. Think about that. Colorado women fighting for the right to vote had to convince a majority of men, the voters in the state, to vote to share their political power with women. That effort took decades of work and lots of effective grassroots organizing. Still yet more remarkable, Colorado women suffragists pulled off this incredible election in the middle of a terrible economic crisis in Colorado when our mining industry was in turmoil and we had 25% unemployment. And yet, they prevailed. They did it. And in doing so, they not only changed Colorado, they led a wave of other states that together ultimately changed our nation and led to greater equality for all of us. As a lawyer, a judge, and a woman, I am forever grateful for the bravery of those women. It is in thanks in part to them that I stand before you today as a justice on the Colorado Supreme Court, the first Latina on the court, and only the sixth woman to serve as a Supreme Court justice in our state's 144-year history. That journey didn't happen overnight either. My father, José Desiderio Lorenzo Márquez, he came from the San Luis Valley, where La Familia Márquez has farmed and ranched in the Antonito Conejos area for many generations. My mom, Sherry Beveridge, yes, that's her name, she grew up in a little town called Anadarko, Oklahoma. My dad wound up in the Air Force during the Vietnam War, and I was born in a barracks hospital on Bergstrom Air Force Base in Austin, Texas. The Air Force sent my father to law school, and when he got out of the service, he landed a job in Grand Junction. Growing up on the Western Slope, my little sister Christine and I hiked and camped and fished on Grand Mesa. I spent my summers in high school picking peaches and driving tractors in Palisade. My mom taught public school, and my dad, he did a fair share of Chicano rights work in his day. He ran a mariachi choir at church. We went to Mass in Spanish. Our friends had surnames like Cruz, Baca, Lucero, Garcia, Rodriguez. And some of us were light-skinned, some were dark. That part never really seemed to matter. But a couple of us grew up and realized we were gay. And that's not an easy thing in a Hispanic Catholic family. I came out to my parents on election night in 1992 over the passage of Amendment 2, which was an anti-gay Colorado voter initiative that was eventually struck down by the United States Supreme Court in a case called Romer versus Evans. Now, in 1992, on the night of that election, I was a 23-year-old Jesuit volunteer teaching in the inner city schools of Camden, New Jersey, and West Philadelphia. Camden, in particular, was and still is desperately poor. It's full of gangs and drugs and guns and poverty. We volunteers lived together in this rundown row house with a whole mess of roaches and mice, and we made a whopping $85 a month. We were fully immersed in that environment, which honestly was utterly foreign to me, coming from a small town like Grand Junction. I counted crack vials on the sidewalk every day on my walk to the bus stop, and every one of us was mugged at one point or another. My first experience with that was being mugged by a prostitute with a baseball bat, and the joke there was I didn't have any money, so it didn't work out very well for either one of us. Even one of my fellow volunteers was shot in the back in a drive-by, gang initiation rite. Luckily, he survived. But those times were tough. And during all of that, I fell in love with teaching. I fell in love with my students. And I learned more from them than all my time in college. And interestingly, it was also during those JVC years that I finally accepted the fact that I was gay. That's not an easy thing because I knew that it would, at least initially, devastate my parents. It could get me fired. And if I wasn't careful, get the you-know-what beaten out of me on the streets of Camden. So I'm sure my parents were terrified for me, and they had good reason to be. The injustices that I both witnessed and that I personally experienced during those years were what inspired me to go to law school. Through a series of accidents and minor miracles, this kid from Grand Junction somehow landed at Yale Law School. It was a dream come true, definitely. And yet, to be honest, I often felt incredibly lonely and unsure that I belonged there among all these students who seemed so brilliant and so accomplished and who had been groomed their whole lives to wind up at a place like Yale. My Western Slope tractor driving skills and even my newly acquired Camden street smarts felt insignificant in those hallways. But I also knew that La Familia Márquez was rooting for me. So I dug deep and I hung in there and I learned to trust that I belonged there. And just like you all today, I finally graduated. It's been a remarkable journey since then. My father, he was one of just a small handful of Latino attorneys in Colorado in the early 1970s. In 1984, and again in 1988, he blazed his own trail of firsts in Colorado legal history, becoming the first Latino district judge in my hometown of Grand Junction, and later, the first Latino judge on the Colorado Court of Appeals. And on December 10th, 2010, with the permission of the Chief Justice, my father, Senior Judge Márquez, gave the judicial oath of office to me, the new Junior Justice Márquez, in a packed, historic Supreme Court courtroom at the state capitol. And as he uttered that last phrase, upon which I am about to enter, his voice cracked and he raised both his arms in triumph. So, we had a bet going that day over who would cry first, and he totally lost. But it was one of the most memorable moments of my life. In the 9+ years since that day, I have discovered that my role as a justice reaches well beyond peppering lawyers in oral arguments and writing opinions. Our justices, we serve as ambassadors of our legal system to the larger community. I have spoken with countless high school, college, law students, and community groups across the state. And I've seen firsthand what a difference it makes to these young women, Latinos, LGBT students, folks from the Western Slope, to meet a Supreme Court justice who reflects some part of them and their experiences. And I'll tell you, there is no greater joy than inviting a young person to climb up into my chair on the bench and to look out at the courtroom from that perspective, to literally inhabit my space and experience my view, and to see their young faces light up with possibilities that they had not previously imagined. And so it matters. Your courage and your persistence today matters, not just for you, but for all those for whom your journey lights the way. My Márquez grandparents did not live to see me become a Supreme Court justice. Neither of them went to college. And in fact, my abuelita, Felicita Merencia Espinosa Márquez, or Grandma Mary, as we called her, she dropped out of high school just a semester short of graduation. Pero mis abuelos, they understood the value of an education, and they made sure that their children not only graduated high school, but college as well. And as for Grandma Mary, ella es mi heroína. She is the toughest mujer I've ever known. And you know what? She eventually went back to school and she finished her GED as a 68-year-old grandmother. She never quit. She inspired me when I was a kid, and she continues to inspire me now. And you all inspire me as well. I want to give a special shout out today to Gilbert Gonzalez, a member of the Rifle Campus class of 2020. Gilbert is a non-traditional student. In fact, he's a veteran who served our country. And after his son encouraged him to go back to school, his desire to graduate and make his children proud gave him the drive and focus that he needed to achieve his goals. And today, after overcoming countless obstacles, Gilbert is graduating with an associate degree in business. Sir, congratulations. We salute you. We are living in an extraordinary moment in history. The last several weeks have been unlike anything any of us has ever experienced, and we don't know what the future holds. Again, we're facing unexpected challenges. For some, it's been the loss of independence and freedom. For others, it's been the loss of a job. Or maybe we're enduring the stress of a job that's on the front lines. Maybe you suddenly have no quiet place to study or sleep. Or maybe you find yourself with additional childcare responsibilities. Or perhaps, like 6 members of my family, you've been hit with COVID-19. Or like me, you have prayed anxiously for days for a loved one lying in the hospital. Let's be real. It's been scary and disorienting. And of course, we all just want it to be over. It's sort of like being a trapeze artist hurtling through space in that great in-between. Nothing to hold on to and no net below. And so here we are, holding our breath in that liminal space, that great in-between. And you know what, lately, I've just tried to be present with it, to let it carry me. If anything, this pandemic has forced us to triage. We have very quickly had to learn the difference between things we just want and the things we actually need. Just like my time in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps when I was trying to live on $85 a month. But our lives were so busy, so frantic, that honestly, being forced to take a collective pause has given us the opportunity to rediscover what's truly important and to find joy in the simple things in life. And so, although it's been hard, I hope that you cherish this opportunity. You're learning in an incredibly compressed period of time what really matters to you, who you really are, and what you're made of. So I urge you to soak up all the wisdom you can from this situation and to let it carry you forward into the rest of your life. You will survive this, and having come through it, nothing can stop you, because you'll know now that you're brave enough, you're fierce enough, you're resilient enough to handle whatever life throws at you. Because here's a little secret. Falling down, getting knocked down, getting beaten down, that's inevitable. It's happened to me more times than I can count. What matters is finding the strength to get up again and again and again. And I hope that someday you'll look back on this time and say, you know what, I'm glad that happened, because that's when I learned what I'm capable of. For today, know that there are moments in life that should be treasured forever, and graduation is absolutely one of them. So take time today to soak it up. Be present. Take a look around you. Whether you've earned your GED or a degree in accounting or IT or business or education, you made it. And somewhere in the room with you, or maybe online, there's a significant other, a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a teacher, maybe just a really good friend who's helped you reach this finish line today. So don't forget to let them know how much you appreciate them, because without that support, you wouldn't be here graduating. And although the coronavirus has maybe stolen a little of the pomp and circumstance from the celebration, know that you have been blessed with an education that can never be taken away from you. And now you have the opportunity and an obligation to use that education and your talents to make this world a better place. I know it's terrifying, but it's also wildly exciting too. Like the brave women of Colorado who fought for the right to vote, trust that it's always going to work out. The bottom line is, you only get one shot in life, so go for it. Thank you.